92.5.
He has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He is the Redeemer and the champion of liberty, of human equality. Let's salute him, fellow Ghanaians, the nation's founder, Agyapong Kwame Nkrumah. May God bless him, Ghana showboy, Africa's great son, Agyapong Dr. Nkrumah.
Ago, when you come, Madam Makasa Kakra, and so when you come and win Tiam Kakra, Menkasapi. Damabara Makade, Bakans Babakakran, and Yamakan Fancy. At long last, the battle has ended.
فقد رام أمرا مستحالا محرما كمن رام مسك البدر يوما بأصبع ومن رام عود الأمس يوما وعيوما كمن رام درك الوصف عيبا قد أكسروا ولكنهم قد غادروا متردما فآثرت حب المصطفى دون غيره ولو أم كلثوم ولو كان مريما فوالله ما في القلب حظ لغيره فغير رسول الله ليس لتعلما أشار إلى مزن فسال مسرمدا وإذ رام مسق الماء أمساق ملهما وإن قريشا أيبوه وثغروا وشق له ذا الجو بدرا معظما وردت له شمس بعيد غروبها وإذ كذبوا قد أنزل الحق كما وهذا ما عذابا برمية كفه.
16 minutes to the top of the hour, 10 here on your power station, Radio Gold 90.5 FM. As earlier announced by Patrick, as for Bodu, we are at the Kudi Park to cover the 40 days tour of the late Alhaji Bature. May you so rest in perfect peace. We are here to cover the entire event live here on your power station, Radio Gold 90.5 FM. So we are unable to bring you Alhaji and Alhaji, but today's show will be fully dedicated to the memory of the late Alhaji Bature. If listeners can recollect, it was on a Saturday morning like the 6th of January when we came into the studio and the news started trickling in that the editor of the Alhaj newspaper had passed on. Within a few minutes we had gotten the information confirmed and shared it live on air that Alhaji Bature was no more, and we proceeded to look at who he was, what he stood for, his legacy in the course of our deliberations today. He was buried that day around 3 p.m. and so this morning we are here to celebrate his life and also perform the dua. For the benefit of those of our listeners who are not Muslims and may not understand what it is we mean when we talk about the dua is the Islamic terminology for the act of supplication. It is calling out to God. It is a conversation with God, our Creator and our Lord, the all-knowing and the all-powerful. In fact, the word dua is derived from the Arabic root meaning to call out or to someone. Dua is uplifting, empowering, liberating, and transforming. And it's one of the most powerful and effective acts of worship a human being can engage in. Dua has been called the weapon of the believer. We're here to do to offer supplications and prayer on behalf of the late Alhaji Bature. And so if you are with us this morning on the show, that's what we shall be doing right here on your power station, Radio Gold 90.5 FM. My name is Samuel Ishen, and until the program comes to an end. And so if you have just joined us once more, you are welcome to the show.
All right, so we've been here since morning for the commencement to the program. So far, a few dignitaries have come through. As we progress, we will tell you those who have been able to join us here. But I see a lot of dignitaries who have joined us here for this 40-day tour of the late Alhaji Bature Idrisu. And I was trying to walk listeners through the program outline for this morning. But quickly before I do that, I have Amin Lampi here with me. So he can update us as to what it means for us to have a 40-day dua. I was explaining from my own small understanding of what it means, but he is better placed to tell us the reason why we are gathered here from the Islamic point of view, what it means to perform a dua. I mean, good morning. Good morning, Sami. So what does it mean to perform a dua 40 days after the passing of Alhaji Bature Idrisu? No, I think that when we say dua, it just simply means prayers or supplication. When somebody dies and the person needs nothing, it's not about in need of material thing, in need of properties or whatever. The most important thing is prayers. And the prayers that we offer is about seeking forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who created him. He lived in this world for so many years. As a human being, he might have committed certain mistakes in his life. So we are anticipating that the dua that we do for the 3 days, for the 1 week, and for the 40 days, it is just an anticipation of trying to seek Allah's forgiveness for our departed souls, including Alhaji Bature. So that is the main essence. So if in the process of performing this dua, what processes do you go through? What processes are we likely to witness today? Well, the first process is that you've already given the preamble. Yeah. We're currently witnessing the arrival of some dignitaries that invited us. The chief imam just arrived. Yeah. So they are reading from the Holy Quran, and the Holy Quran symbolize, the main agenda for this occasion, where we have to make sure that we supplicate arrive. We have to go through the khutbah. After the khutbah, we then roll out the program, outline that we have for the day. So it is just a simple dua, but it's important that sometimes we need to
acknowledge the presence of some individuals and dignitaries. We'll be giving chance to some to come out with their tribute. We're talking about the political parties in this country, the GJA, and other important personalities will be given the chance to tell us what they have regarding their tribute. And Alhaji ABF Husseini, who is a very close ally to Alhaji Bature, remember himself and Mr. Kosi Pratt, they've been together for so many years. So ABF Husseini will give us an idea about how come the concept Alhaji and Alhaji came into being. So this is one area that a lot of Ghanaians will love to know. They will love to hear from ABF Husseini.
Most definitely, we will speak to him. But you were speaking about the prayers that are offered. So, what topics for the period that everybody will be praying? Which individual be having a certain topic that he or she will be praying about?
No, it is only His Excellency, the former Ghana ambassador to Egypt, His Excellency Umaru Sanda, is the only speaker who is going to talk to us about the significance of our stay on this earth and why must we live a good life before we depart this world. He is going to speak. After him, nobody is going to speak again. The remaining things that we're expecting is the tributes from individuals and invited guests. The National Chief Imam is the principal Imam today. He is going to lead us in the prayer. I think the National Chief Imam will also have Alhaji
Akwetima. We also have the president of the Council of Zongo Chiefs in Ghana, who is also an Islamic scholar, and other important imams who are here. They would all offer some brief prayers for Alhaji Bature, and then His Excellency the former president would also deliver the keynote address, because remember is one of the chief mourners. He is going to deliver his keynote address, and that's it. And the national chief imam will wind up with closing prayer.
So that's a bit of a summary of what we'll be witnessing today here at the Kaokudi Park. I mean, I'm grateful that you made time to explain these, religious processes to us, so we better appreciate what Islam holds.
Very well, thank you so much. And I think that those of you listening to us, if you've never seen Mr. Kwesi Pratt physically, Kwesi Pratt is here, A.B. Hussein is here, some personalities are here, and I know if you're listening to Radio Gold, you can make your way to Kaokudi Park and have a glimpse of, if even nobody, you can see Mr. Kwesi Pratt, who is also a Zongo person, if you catch to know. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for these updates. You're still here with us on Alhaji and Alhaji, the mother of all talk shows. Today's show is specifically dedicated to the memory of the late Alhaji Bature. If you listen to Amin Lamte whilst he was making his submission, he made a point about some two important people who are with us here at the Kaokudi Park. He made mention of Mr. Kwesi Pratt Jr. He made mention of Alhaji ABA Fusaini. These are people who had close encounters with the late Alhaji Bature. And so I would like to start with Alhaji ABA Fusaini and find out what he makes of today's event, the fact that supplications are going to be made on behalf of Alhaji Bature, and he being somebody who sat with him on a daily basis on the program, what it makes of his departure, and what these supplications in the long run would do, and what he believes would be the legacy of Alhaji Bature Idrisu. Alhaji, good morning.
Good morning.
And I hope you're doing well.
By the grace of Allah.
Okay. So, sitting here today, watching us perform the dua, the 40 days dua for a brother, a friend, a colleague that you work with, what feelings are going through you now?
Sami, let me say that for the fact that I'm a Muslim and I give everything that has happened to Allah Almighty, I can tell you that this is a very emotional moment, having to reflect on the life of the legendary Alhaji Bature. Let me say first, as a Muslim, that A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. It's Allah Almighty who tells us in the Quran that Kalu inna lillahi wa lillahi rajun, that from him cometh everybody, and unto him shall everybody return. And so, like I said, as a Muslim, it's inevitable that all of us, at a certain period, at a certain hour, at a certain minute, at a certain moment, will return to the Almighty. But Alhaji Bature was an all-round personality. For me, he was not, we started as friends, but we ended more or less as brothers. Alhaji was a very good man. He was a visionary person. He was a committed person. He was a very dedicated person. He is somebody who had a steadfast commitment to the truth. And even if he thought that this was the truth, and there were 100 people who stand up for it. And to talk of his commitment and dedicating to the NDC, I cannot quantify it. I can just give a brief summary leading up to the institution of Alhaji and Alhaji.
Please share with us.
You know, Alhaji used his place, both his office and his workplace at Mamobi as a rallying point. That is where all of us used to meet. I remember sometimes even before I go to work, or even after work, or at any point in time there was even any matter, Alhaji would call. Can we meet to deliberate on these issues? And we would meet there. Alhaji would shoulder the expenses of almost everything. He would use his own resources to organize such meetings. to bring all such like-minded people together. And so, Sammy, it was not accidental when the NDC lost power in 2000. You remember the agenda that was owned by the MPP government at that time. In fact, the MPP made it public at that time that the era of prosecutions they have started, and that by the time they finish with the prosecution, there will be nobody left in the NDC. You remember that period?
Yeah.
It was a public statement of persecution by the MPP, and they carried it with a vengeance, to the point that, Eshan, there was many people who were even leading members of the NDC were now even afraid to get up and speak. Some even overnight transmogrified into the status of pastors, that they were no longer interested in talking politics. They were in the realm of theology. Some went back into academia. Many people went back, and there was an institution of a culture of silence, where many leading members of the NDC not only put foot, but they could not even speak, and they decided they would no longer speak for the party. So such was the pervasive nature of this culture of silence, that meeting was held at Alhaji Bature's place, and I can pay tribute to so many people. Alhaji TD, we had Alhaji TD, we had Alhaji Tanko, even Amin Lamte, many of them. And in general discussions, we were all bemoaning, Eshan, we were bemoaning the state, that if everybody has to be petrified into silence so that we will not speak at that level, what was the way forward? Sammy, I remember, and I said to Alhaji, this is not the era of lamentations. What do we do? Sammy, as a result of discussions that went on among everybody, it was Alhaji Bature who said that, look, let us craft a program so that we will use that program as a voice for the millions of voiceless people across the country, so that will give a platform to break this culture of incipient intimidation of NDC members, so that would give real voice to the millions of Ghanaians across the country who were petrified to speak. And so it was accepted. Then came the name. What name do we craft for the program? There were many names that were floated around. Many names were given. But at the end, it was Alhaji who said, I am Alhaji Bature. You are Alhaji ABF Hussein. Why don't you make it Alhaji and Alhaji? So the name Alhaji and Alhaji originally referred to he, Alhaji Bature, and myself, Alhaji ABF Hussein. When he said, why don't you make it, you are Alhaji ABF Hussein, I am Alhaji Bature. So let's make it Alhaji and Alhaji. So that is how the name was crafted. And we took off. Let me pay special let me take special note of the contribution of a very important person to the growth and development of Alhaji. And it's not because he's sitting here, Mr. Kwesi Pratt. At that time, Mr. Kwesi Pratt was one of the key members on this Joy FM program, Newsfile. But shortly after Alhaji was brought into being, Mr. Kwesi Pratt was one of the first persons, because Alhaji had just come in. It had not built any name, but he had built a name on Joy Newsfile and Joy FM. Mr. Kwesi Pratt left it, realizing the ideals of what Alhaji stood for, and came. And it was the inclusion of Mr. Kwesi Pratt, along with myself and Alhaji Bature, as the pioneers in starting Alhaji program, that gave life. And in fact, within a short period, very short period of less than 6 months and a year, Alhaji catapulted from an obscure program to the leading talk show in the country. And I can tell you that millions of Ghanaians on Saturdays will not go anywhere until they have listened to Alhaji. It was the one that took the core issues of society, the core concerns of Ghanaians, which were then buried under the MPP government, which the MPP tried to suppress and prevent people from talking about. That gained currency on Alhaji. And thanks to the insight of Kwesi Pratt and others, the light shone. And Alhaji rose, like I said, from that obscurity to the leading talk show program in the country. And in spite of all the difficulties that Alhaji went through under the MPP, when they found out that it was a program that was flying so high, including the direct persecution of my good self, I was then working at Daily Graphic. They went and got the management of Graphic to institute measures preventing me from participating in Alhaji on account that I was working in a state-owned enterprise, and got the board prohibitively make orders to sanction. Indeed, Eshan, I had to appear before a 5-member board of inquiry to defend myself why I should not be dismissed from the Graphic Corporation for my participation in Alhaji. So eventually, they succeeded in preventing me, even notwithstanding the fight mounted by the likes of Mr. Kwesi Pratt. In the end, I had to seek court, the avenue of the court, to try and vindicate my rights, to ensure that as a Ghanaian, I had an inalienable constitutional right to air my opinion as a Ghanaian, irrespective of wherever I was working. And take note that Graphic Corporation was not a public service. It was not a civil service. The injunction on public servant speaking was for those in the public civil service. Graphic was not in the civil service. It did not form part of civil service institutions. So I took them to court. Indeed, when the court asked for Graphic and the government to file their response, they chickened out. And listen, the case that for more than 2.5 years, the state and Graphic could not enter appearance. And I would say without any item of hesitation that even the judge, they tried to even intimidate the judge. When after failure to appear, the judge imposed cost on Graphic and the state. They said that who is this judge who had the impudence to impose cost on the state and on Graphic Communications Group. And so they put the case in abeyance. But I just want to say that Alhaji Bature was a man of vision. He was a man of courage. Look, there was a time as part of this, we had done a program where we were very critical of the Kufuor government. When the program ended after this, my brother, they came for him. There's just a BNI facility not far from here. Alhaji Bature was put there. I remember I came there, they threatened they were going to add me to it, and I said they could add me to Alhaji Bature. Alhaji Bature spent more than 48 hours. More than the 48-hour mandatory period required for citizens to be either brought to trial or released. They kept him more than that and did not. For the courage and fortitude of his belief, he stood for them and never wavered a minute. Like I said, we are all human. We all have our frailties. We have our faults. We have whatever. But Alhaji Bature overall stood tall. He was a man who lived up to his belief and his convictions. He was a man who failed never to be intimidated. That whether you are in power or not, and he believes that this thing that is going is against the interests of the state, and that he believes so to speak, he will speak forcefully without any fear of.
Alhaji, let me take a few words.
Bature, and I just want to end up on this note, maybe for that this time, that may the Almighty Allah be pleased with his soul. Today, as Muslims, we have nothing that we can give to our brother Alhaji Bature, but to pray for the restitution of his soul, for Allah Almighty to be pleased with his soul and admit him to Jannah, to Firdaus. That is the only gift. That is the only thing we can do for him as a brother, as a friend, as a comrade.
Thank you very much, Alhaji. I will come to you shortly. Let me pick a few words from Mr. Kwesi Pratt, because in your submission, you made mention of him and he spoke about how he was one of the key people. I have seen the former president John Dramani Mahama's convoy coming in
And the crowd cheering at the sides of the former president John Dramani Mahama coming in to solidarize with the family and commiserate with them, and also offer his own supplications on behalf of Alhaji Bature. And he is getting down out of his car to be welcomed to where he's supposed to be sitting. But let me come to Mr. Pratt before we talk about the other dignitaries who are coming. So, Mr. Pratt, you heard Alhaji ABA Fuseni making comments about how you all started the program together and what you had to go through to ensure this program that we are sitting on today has become what it is today. What do you make of Alhaji ABA, Alhaji Bature, and what he stood for?
Well, first of all, it's important to understand very, very clearly that the year 2000 was a very, very special year. It was the year in which, for the first time, a democratically elected government was handed over to another, and there was great expectation across the land. People expected that democratic practice would be deepened. People expected that the economic and social problems which confronted them would be dealt with. There was great expectation and anxiety around 2000. However, many people were disappointed in the handling of the media at the time. And it became apparent after only a few months that those who disagreed with government and were courageous enough to go out and express those views would be muzzled or were being muzzled. I recall very, very clearly that around that time, me and other friends, distinguished journalists and so on, were on a program which was called The News File. It was a Saturday program, like Alhaji and so on. Increasingly, it became uncomfortable. Being on that program became exceedingly uncomfortable because of the fact that a lot of people were organized, deliberately organized, to ridicule, to muzzle and so on, and to make sure that free expression was not completely and fully allowed, on many other networks. I had to take a very, very painful decision to leave that program. And it was around that time that I was approached by Alhaji ABA Fuseni and Alhaji Bature Idrisu to join them on a new program which was then christened as Alhaji and Alhaji. After listening to Alhaji ABA Fuseni and Alhaji Bature Idrisu, I became convinced that the program they were about to initiate was a program which could move this country forward and expand the frontiers of free expression. And I decided to join them. Indeed, the program was not meant to be an NBC program. Alhaji and Alhaji was conceived as a program which would give expression to all views, which would allow free expression of views by everybody and anybody. So if you look at the initial panel, which was composed for Alhaji and Alhaji, it included elements from the New Patriotic, elements from the Convention People's Party, from the National Democratic Congress, and so on. Indeed, the two leading figures in the program were Alhaji ABA Fuseni and Alhaji Bature, and that is why the program became christened as Alhaji and Alhaji. Now, for me, what was significant about Alhaji Bature was that he was not just interested in hosting a radio program. Alhaji Bature was an activist and believed in using the radio program as a platform for doing all other things that he considered promoted democracy. Alhaji Bature saw Alhaji and Alhaji as a platform for the articulation of alternative and authentic views, not necessarily views that he agreed with. The other significant thing about Alhaji Bature was that he was to a very large extent, exceedingly benevolent. In the initial stages, this program was aired on Vibe FM, which itself was having a lot of difficulties, technical difficulties, it was having financial difficulties and so on. So we tended to use the resources that Alhaji Bature had acquired privately to run the program. For example, it was a program which was lasting 3 hours, sometimes 4 hours, very unusual. Because up until then, no program would go beyond an hour, maximum 2 hours. We were running a program that was going beyond 3 hours sometimes, and it was tiring. I mean, everybody thought that it would be tiring and boring and that listeners would be turned away. But we proved in the final analysis that we can run a program for 4 hours continuous and still have your listeners glued to their radio set if the content was relevant and important. So we broke that jinx. You know, the academics and so on were saying that, look, the attention span of listeners was around 1 hour. You couldn't go beyond 1 hour. We did 4 hours and we retained our listeners. And you see, if you're going to do a program from 8 o'clock in the morning to 12 o'clock in the morning, it taxes the human body. You need to refresh the human body. You need to make available water, other minerals and so on, sometimes even food, you know. And for some of the people who were taking part in the program, even the ability to move to the station was a problem. All of that was catered for from the personal pocket of Alhaji Bature. And for me, that was remarkable. Here is a guy. Those days we did programs and got paid for doing programs. He was paying to do a program. That was very, very significant. He was paying to do a program. Now, the other aspect of his dedication was simply the fact that he devoted enormous amount of time to preparing for the program. You know, I mean, you could go to him early in the morning and he'll be reading and researching and typing. His typing was very slow. You know, he had not done typing, he was getting used to the computer for the first time and so on. And yet he spent enormous effort in trying to prepare the program, collecting materials from the internet and so on. It was his life. It became his life. Now, it was not just, he didn't do all this just for the program and on the program. The relationship went beyond what happened on the program and around the program to encompass everything else that all of us did. I remember one time having fallen sick in the office. I'd fallen sick in the office and somebody called Alhaji Bature, because Bature was one of the closest people around and so on. And within minutes, Bature came to the office, put me in his car and drove me to his hotel and gave me one of the hotel rooms and called one of our friends who was a medical practitioner. And I stayed in the hotel the whole day under his personal care. You understand? And this was, everybody was interested in everybody, not just as a radio presenter or a panelist on a radio program, but as a human being. And that is how we managed to work so closely together, so hard, and that in less than a year, Alhaji and Alhaji became the biggest talk show in Ghana. I think it still is the biggest talk show in Ghana. Now, Alhaji Bature, or Alhaji Bature Idrisu, was an activist, as I've said. I remember many causes for which he stood and so on. And actually, on the platform of Alhaji and Alhaji, we started now doing programs outside the studio. And I recall the first time we did a program outside the studio, it was the Afrikiko nightclub. And I was pleasantly surprised when we arrived for the program and saw hundreds, if not thousands of people feeling Afrikiko, and wanting to participate in that program. That day we allowed for audience participation, and the program was so greatly enriched, as a result of the audience participation which had been introduced. We moved to places like Ho and other places to organize activities under the banner of the Alhaji and Alhaji program, And we're doing fairly well at Vibe FM until the difficulties of Vibe FM became overwhelming and they could no longer, host us because they had virtually been closed down. So we then went into a discussion about how to make sure that the program continued and continue to serve the purposes for which it had been crafted. And I recall that in those discussions, all of us, Alhaji Bature Idrisu, Alhaji ABA Husseini, myself, people like Edgar Wedu was a key member, of this program. Even Edgar Wedu participated once or twice in the program and so on. We unanimously decided that the place to go was Radio Gold. And we chose Radio Gold because Radio Gold was the only station which we believe could not be intimidated into tampering with the project and its objectives and so on. So we finally moved the program to Radio Gold. We were greatly assisted by Mr. Bafu Boni, who was then the general manager of Radio Gold and who had taken a key interest in Alhaji and Alhaji. I recall that when we were doing Alhaji and Alhaji on Vibe FM, as general manager of Radio Gold, sometimes he would leave Radio Gold and come and watch us debating at Vibe FM and so on. And he was more than pleased. In fact, he was enthusiastic about moving the program from Vibe FM to Radio Gold, So this is briefly the history. And I must say that Alhaji Bature Idrisu was visionary. His commitment was beyond, he did everything possible to make sure that this program grew and became what it has become today. It was partly his vision, it was also partly his dedication, it was his hard work, it was his commitment and all of that which brought us to where we are. Well,
former President John Dramani Mahama just came to our table. I think it would be most appropriate to take a word or two from him before he leaves us. Good morning, Mr. President.
Hello, good morning.
I hope you're doing well today, sir.
Yeah, doing very well.
The accounts we've heard so far indicates the kind of relationship you had with the late Alhaji Bature on this day when we commemorate his 40th day passing away. What's your fondest memory of him?
The relationship with Alhaji is quite well known. It's transcended a very long time from when I came into politics as a young deputy minister and a minister. He was one person who I shared confidences with, and he was always full of counsel. He used to send me texts most of the time, just to draw attention to something if he thought something wasn't being done well. At the time I was Minister of Communications, and then he would say, look, you better attend to this, you better attend to that. So we've been together all that while, and the relationship has continued to grow. We got much closer because of my younger brother. He became very good friends with my younger brother, and so that drew us even closer together. And unfortunately, God gives and God takes, and so on this day we're here to honor his memory.
But how did you take the news of his passing away?
It came as a shock. We heard he had collapsed, and that day I happened to be with his friend Ibrahim, my younger brother, and so we had to call the Kolebu to get a bed to evacuate him from a certain small clinic where they had sent him. And so they moved him. We sent an ambulance, they moved him, and I want to commend the doctors who worked on them. They did their best, but like it said, it's God who determines, and so he passed away.
What would you describe as his legacy today?
I think that even on this program that we are currently participating, he and Alhaji Bature, if people remember, were the originators of this program. And I think that this program has grown from strength to strength, and it's currently one of the programs that enlightens people and gives them a lot of information about what's going on in governance, politics and other areas. So I think that the survival of the program long after he's gone will continue to commemorate his memory.
We are grateful, Mr. President.
Thank you very much.
That's the former President John Dramani Mahama sharing a word with us on this day as we celebrate the 40th dua of the late Alhaji Bature Idrisu.
If you just join us, you're still here on your power station, Radio Gold 90.5 FM, your power station. We are coming to you live from the Kudi Park, where the dua is happening live for the late Alhaji Bature. So, Mr. Pat, you're making a point before the former president joined
I was
us.
just making the point that Alhaji Bature was an activist, a very, very serious activist, and he saw beyond just radio and television and so on, but he saw radio, television, the newspaper and so on as platforms for mobilization in order to bring about social justice, to uphold the principles of equity and equality and so on. Above all, he was passionately interested in ensuring that all the sides of the story are told. Look, we went through very, very difficult moments when we started Alhaji and Alhaji. Extremely difficult moments. I mean, today, nobody goes through that to sit on radio. But we had a hell of time sitting on radio. I recall the attempt to dismiss ABA Fuseni from Graphic because of its participation in this program. And it was a big thing for us at the time. I recall that, let me say this, it's not all those who shout freedom and democracy and so on who believe in what they preach. Indeed, the attempt to sack ABA Fuseni from Graphic because of its participation in the Alhaji and Alhaji program was spearheaded by some of the academics and pro-democracy, so-called pro-democracy activists who are loudest about the right of people to free speech and so on. You understand? And for me, that was a major lesson. Graphic actually set up a committee to craft rules which were designed simply to keep ABA Fuseni from Radio Gold and from Alhaji and Alhaji. And the rules simply said that if you work for Graphic, you cannot speak on another radio station and so on. Interestingly, even today, many of the top notch in Graphic are speaking on radio stations. They are even writing articles for other newspapers and so on. Nobody is sanctioning them. So it was very clear that was targeted to Alhaji Fuseni, and we needed to solidarize with him. We needed to keep his spirits up. We needed to make the point that we were with him. You understand? Now. Beyond that, there was also the case which had been stated about Alhaji Bature himself, who was arrested, and we had to show a lot of solidarity, to keep his spirits up, to ensure that he was able to do the work that we were doing and so on. Of course, my case is so well known that I need not repeat it. I mean, the fabrications which were manufactured against me, and we had to spend more than a year battling these needless, senseless, and sometimes outrightly stupid fabrications. But they hang around our necks, and so, and we had to do battle, In those days, those who did not join the praise choir, of the then administration had a lot of difficulty accessing anything and everything, and we were more or less isolated. Isolated and so on. We had to work our way and struggle and fight and so on. In the end, the people of Ghana gave their verdict on what we were doing. And the people of Ghana gave their verdict by showing clearly that Radio Gold and Alhaji were the preferred program and station. Their preferred program and station. I remember at one time one of the surveys established very clearly that the number of people who listened to Alhaji and Alhaji in some instances was 4 times bigger than those who listened to other similar programs. 4 times bigger than those who listened to other programs as well. So the credit is not just to those of us who dedicated ourselves to developing the program and so on. The credit is also to the people of Ghana who were discerning enough to know which programs and so on were articulating positions that would inure to their benefit. The people of Ghana who recognize that Alhaji and Alhaji was their own voice. The people of Ghana who came to accept Alhaji and Alhaji as their own platform for struggling, not against a political party or a president and so on, but struggling against a system, struggling against an establishment which was responsible for their underdevelopment and poverty. You understand? So the credit largely goes to Alhaji Ibrahim Husseini, it goes to Alhaji Bature Idrisu and so on for initiating the idea. But the struggle, the credit also goes to all of those who participated in the enterprise. Bafo, Bonnie, Edgar, Uedu, so many of them, Dr. David Percy, so many of them, and also the people of Ghana who gave us their support. I mean, ABA Husseini is sitting here. We went to Rio to talk, to organize a symposium, and when we got to the hall, my goodness, I've seen crowds. You know, I took part in organizing the Kumupopo demonstration of 1995. I saw the hundreds of thousands of people and so on. But that day when we got to Ho, and I saw the crowd which was milling out just for Alhaji and Alhaji, I told myself that we are doing something right. What we are doing must be making a lot of sense to people across the country and so on. So today, we've gathered here to show our respect to Alhaji Bature Idrisu, who initiated, who led us more or less into this heroic enterprise, to honor him, to say the things that we remember about him and so on. But I think that the biggest thing that we can do in order to ensure that his memory lives on, and that the memory lives on in a positive way, is to make sure that the enterprises he was associated with continue to grow from strength to strength. Alhaji and Alhaji should continue to grow from strength to strength. It should improve its quality and content, and if we did that, it would be a better tribute to Alhaji Bature Idrisu than any other thing that we can do, you know, in his memory.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pratt, for your thoughts on how this whole program started, your memories of the late Alhaji Bature. Alhaji, let me come to you. The point about his loss, his departure from amongst us, how did you receive the news and how did you take it?
Okay, but before that, so let me make a very important point. Mr. Kwesi Pratt was one of the pioneers who joined us shortly after the institution of the program. And if there's one face that has remained a permanent feature of that program, it's him. I want to pay that tribute, because at various times, all of us, as a result of certain developments, had departed from Alhaji. Not that we completely went away from the program, occasionally we come, but Kwesi Pratt has almost on a weekly basis, from Saturday to Saturday, from month to month, from year to year, remain the permanent face of the program. My brother, it takes huge level of commitment and dedication for somebody to use his time, his energy, and especially as an editor, as a political activist, as a social activist, as an internationalist, as a socialist internationalist member, combine all this and still get time for the program. That tells you how much he cherishes that program and how much of content that he wants the good people of this country to learn. I want to use the application to pay tribute to you for still keeping the program alive. And especially there was an incident which happened which would have taken him out of the program, but which for me even reinforced his commitment. The coffee shop mafia, and I gave them the name Pepu Baku, Egbefebu, Sonideka. At that time they constituted the group at coffee shop. Even at that time, you couldn't even Gandiabe. They were all part of a coffee shop mafia dedicated to ensuring that anything that any progressive minded person said, which was not ignoring to the benefit of the MPP should be brought down. And so they went and conspired and cooked a very dirty, wicked story that Mr. Kwesi Pratt had gone and accepted $125,000 bribe
from Jerry Rawlings,
all in the name of tarnishing his image, giving his integrity, and getting him out of the program. I am proud to say that I was one of the persons who took up that battle and we fought them. In fact, within 2 weeks after making that allegation, all of them were running for cover. But Mr. Kwesi Pratt stayed solid. It did not deter him. And that is a point I thought was worth making. I also want to take this opportunity, I will answer your question, to pay tribute to somebody who was not within the NDC folk. He was not within the NDC fraternity, but he fought my case. And I'm talking of Mr. Agyapong Labi. He was the former member of parliament for Agyapong. When I was being gagged and prevented from talking, he was the one who took up my case. Free bono. He didn't take one Ghana CD from me. He did it for me free of charge, and he was a member of the New Patriotic Party. So he told you that there were good people on the other side who would not countenance the dictatorship that the MPP wanted to impose on this country. And so, Sammy, to your question about today's event, and I think Mr. Kwesi Pratt has spoken eloquently to it. Because look, Alhaji Bature, I can't say it all. I can't find one word to summarize what this man was. But I can only say that he was God sent. Because this is a man who is hosting a program, who will use his personal money to prepare for the program, to do research, to get the infrastructure ready. All the jingles we are playing today and all the jobs, he started them. He did research and found all of them at his own personal expense. At every material moment outside the program, he used to run a restaurant at McDonald's. You will go there, allow you to provide food for everybody. And when you are going home, you will do takeaway, go and give it to your children. This was a man who was imbued with excellent humane qualities inside him, and he did this in the supreme service of the good people of this country, because he was motivated to giving voice to the voiceless of the millions of Ghanaians. And so in those days there were even times when we were taking I'm sure it was direct calls. They would even allow some section to phone in, so that their voices, what they felt and how they felt about how the country was being run, so that they will have a voice in our democratic process. So when we come to talk about today our democratic process being entrenched, Alhaji Bature has paid his dues, because I know the contribution that he made to give people who otherwise would never have had a voice, a potent voice in deciding how the destiny of this country will be shaped. So I have no doubt in my mind that when the history of our democracy comes to written, Alhaji Bature has a pride of place. And the history of Radio Gold as a pioneer of progressive journalism.
In fact,
Alhaji Bature
one
has
of
a
the
place.
things which was done in order to lower the credibility of the program was to deliberately target as an NDC platform, and that was deliberately done. Because I recall that when we started Alhaji and Alhaji, there's so many people from different political parties, different social groupings and so on, participating in the program on a regular basis. And one of our regulars was Edgar Redu.
Yeah.
You know, Edgar Redu, son of the former Chief Justice. Edgar Fable used to participate in this program and so on. You understand? But then the program had become so powerful, so very powerful, that the authorities at the time decided that its credibility ought to be destroyed. How did they go about doing it? They went about, first of all, withdrawing MPP elements from participating in the program, so that even if you invited MPP elements, they wouldn't show up for the program. So it looks like MPP had a problem with the program. Of course, they had a problem with the program. It was not because it was biased or one-sided. The problem they had was that this was a program which told it as it had to be told, and so on. You understand? So that was one of the ways of deliberately working in order to ensure that the program lost credibility. And it is for this reason that I think some very, very special people deserve commendation and credit. And one of those people that I like to mention, even though it may not eventually be very beneficial to him and so on, I think that the truth needs to be said. It's Philip London, an activist of the New Patriotic Party. Philip London, who happened to be a member of the communications team of the New Patriotic Party, and so on, constantly kept participating in Alhaji and Alhaji. Even I think after last year, and I'm so grateful to Philip London for his dedication to debates, to engagement with others and so on. And I'm so happy that he did what he had to do, and perhaps even defied some of the authorities who wanted to create the impression that this program is an NDC program. Look, I've been in the studio sometimes, and the panel has been composed of myself, and I don't think that anybody can properly and legitimately describe me as NDC. But I'll be in the studio with Professor Ninoy Dewona, who was General Secretary of the Convention People's Party, who is an independent mind and so on. And then David Percy that nobody can control. David Percy says what he wants to say and does what he wants to do, and nobody can stop him. In any case, David Percy has never been a member of the NDC, and he will be in the studio. In fact, David Percy is a member of the Socialist Forum of Ghana. And then you have Philip London, and you have one NDC communicator, and yet you'll be getting text messages which says that there's an NDC platform. How? There'll be moments when you can get a panel made up of Bernard Mona, David Percy, myself, Sampi Ali, and somebody from the NPP like Michael Ampon. And yet the panel will be tagged as NDC and so on. All of that is deliberate. All of this tagging is deliberate. Its primary objective is to reduce credibility. If credibility cannot be destroyed completely, at least to reduce it.
And even the panel, even on news file and others, sometimes it may be even skewed more towards MPP than even you can think about. Because like you are talking about CPP, you are talking about PNC, you are talking about one NDC, and you are talking about an MPP. Each political party just has one. You can go to sometimes news file and there are two members of them or pro MPP people on the program when there's only one NDC, but they don't target an MPP program.
Well, I don't want to mention the specific programs, but I've seen some programs on which you have 3 MPP communicators and 1 NDC communicator.
Yes,
and it's not an MPP program.
Exactly.
But if you come to Radio Go, if you come to Alhaji and Alhaji, where there's only 1 NDC person on the panel, it is still an NDC program. These things don't work. They don't work. They will never work. And I think it's important for us to continue prouding on in memory of Alhaji Bature. I think it's important for us to continue to soldier on so that the dreams of Alhaji Bature will come to fruition at some point. You understand?
I just want to say something in relation to what Kwesi Pratt said. You see, they said that the seed of the Almighty, not even the most devastating drought can destroy it. You see, I have said that a lie is like a pregnancy. The older it grows, the more exposed it becomes. You see, if you call your donkey a horse, on the day the race is called against the horse, it will smoke the dust of the horse and it will be exposed for the ass that it is. You see, if you look at our brothers on the other side, like Kwesi Pratt has tried to show, you would see inevitably that they went to all lengths to try and destroy the program because of the impact that the program had made in the minds of the people of this country. And so I have said it that the seed that Alhaji Bature, myself, Mr. Kwesi Pratt, and all have planted in the course of this program, which have elicited the participation of Ghanaians across the length and breadth of the country, has come to stay. And like I endorse Mr. Kwesi Pratt that we should continue to jealously guard the content and enrich the content of the program. We must continue to make sure that we become relevant to the cries of Ghanaians. We must continue to listen to the voice of the good people of this country on the ground, not the selfish, egocentric interests of political actors in power. We must ensure that the interests and aspirations of the people of this country continues to feature in the programs of Alhaji and Alhaji, so that at the end of the day, the relevance that we are talking about, Alhaji will not only remain relevant and continue to be the leading program, but that will continue to elicit more participation from Ghanaians. And so, on this solemn occasion, no better tribute, Sammy, no better tribute could have been paid to Alhaji Bature than to dedicate today for him. And I'm very happy that the management of Radio Gold and of Alhaji have chosen to bring this Alhaji today to this place in a fitting tribute to the founder of this program, Alhaji Bature. And I want to Sami, for those of you hosting the program, my advice is that you must not slacken your resolve. I want to advise that there are challenges. Indeed, in those days, there were more difficult challenges that confronted Alhaji, especially in the initial program. We look, Sami, there were times when I finished the program. By the time I got there, there were about 5-6 BNI vehicles parked in my house. We went through excruciating difficulties. But I just want to tell you that in doing some of these things, you will encounter difficulties. But the difficulties must strengthen your resolve. It must strengthen your resolve. So I want to urge you that in spite of the difficulties, you should continue to dedicate more time to enriching the content of this program, so that this program will go into many years. Our children will come and inherit this program, and it will be a lasting tribute to Alhaji Bature and all of us who strove in our time to help build this program. So I think that the onus is on you. When the landlord has responsibility to his tenant, it is so as he will do a proper reporting back to him, and so that he retains his status as a landlord. So I'm sure that today that you are in charge of the program, I think that you are a caretaker, and I have no doubt at all in your capabilities and others. Please, there will be difficulties, there will be frustrations, there will be impediments. Don't let those impediments be and that will undermine the efficacy of the Alhaji program. History today has trusted that responsibility onto you, and you have a bounden duty. You cannot fail the good people of this country. I pray that Almighty Allah imbue you with the requisite level of strength, courage, and fortitude to carry on your work, so that Alhaji will continue to remain the leading talk show in Ghana. Almighty Allah bless you all.
You know, just briefly, a few moments ago, Honorable Kennedy Agyapong walked in to very loud applause. Honorable Kennedy Agyapong has been a very good friend of Alhaji Bature, and there's a good reason why they were friends even up until the time that he died. I recall, maybe I hope you recall, that Alhaji Bature decided to invite Honorable Kennedy Agyapong to Alhaji and Alhaji to participate in Alhaji and Alhaji. And I'm sure that all of us are also well aware of the reputation of Honorable Kennedy Agyapong. Hard-hitting, hard-talking, strong, sometimes not so careful about legality and so on. You understand? So there was some discomfort, some disquiet and so on. But Alhaji Bature insisted And he became quite a feature on Alhaji and Alhaji, having participated in the program a couple of times and generated some controversy many times. But he was coming, and so and it was because of Alhaji Bature's strong conviction that no voice should be shut out. And can you imagine an NDC activist like Bature, who in those days was insisting that no matter what, Kennedy Agyapong, Honorable Kennedy Agyapong, should be allowed to participate in Alhaji and Alhaji. That's a strong statement about him. Very, very strong statement about Bature. But also to some extent, a very strong statement about Honorable Kennedy Agyapong. Because Honorable Kennedy Agyapong started participating in this program in spite of the injunction that NPP elements should not participate in this program. And he kept coming. You know, so here you have Kennedy Agyapong and you have Bature, and the common strand was that all of them believed in speaking out, even if they were wrong. You understand? And that's a very strong, very, very strong statement about both of them. You can disagree with them. You may not like what they say. You may even think that sometimes what they say may not conform strictly to the dictates of the law and so on. But they will insist on their right to say it, and they will say it, and they will not hold it against each other. I think that we need to be moving in that direction, you know. And we need to pay tribute to a lot of people for what they have done. I mean, look, we cannot be discussing Alhaji and Alhaji today without mentioning somebody like Michael Cook, who initially accepted to host Alhaji and Alhaji on Vibe FM. Michael Cook played his part in the development of this program. You cannot be discussing this program without making reference to somebody like Teya. What was his name? I think his nickname is Ro. You know, Teya, who then was working with Vibe FM. There was another gentleman at Vibe FM called Mensa. I've forgotten his other name. He was a nephew of Mr. J.H. Mensa, who eventually went to Sierra Leone or Liberia to work in one of the radio stations. You know. He was a key figure and so on. Now all of these people should not be forgotten. You understand? They've all played various roles in the development of the program. They continue to play significant roles in the struggle for democracy in Ghana and so on. And I think it's important to recognize all of them. I must mention that Mr. Randy Abbey also initially participated as a panelist on Alhaji and Alhaji, and he is part of the history of this program.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pratt, for these beautiful tunes that you shared with us. Alhaji Abbey as well for these memories that you shared with those of us, the young generation, who will not have witnessed the happenings in the studio when you would complete your tasks on air and go to find BNI waiting for you in your house forecast, and some of us don't face that. Maybe we are yet to. But these are things that when shared with the young generation encourages them, motivates them, so that when we begin to also face these challenges, we'll know that we are not alone in the battle for, democracy to thrive and for freedom of speech as well. So for those who just joined us, we're still live on your power station, Radio Gold 90.5 FM. This is Alhaji and Alhaji, the mother of all talk shows. This morning, the entire show is dedicated to the memory of the late Alhaji Bature Idrisu. We are at the 40-day dua at the Kaukudi Park, and a few dignitaries have come through this morning, but I think it will be most appropriate if I walk you through the program outline for today, and then I acknowledge a few of the individuals that I have seen this morning gracing the occasion with their presence. The arrival of invited guests has happened because most of the guests have come through already. There's been a reading of the Holy Quran. The dignitaries also have come through, as earlier announced. The Chief Imam, National Chief Imam, is also here. The reading of the Kuba as well. the welcome address by the chairman of the Funeral Planning Committee, Dr. Mustafa Ahmed, the introduction of the dignitaries. We are expecting to have an exhortation on the death of Alhaji Bature by His Excellency Ambassador Umar Samda Ahmed. A brief profile of Alhaji Bature Idrisu by Amos Blessing Amos, the news editor for the Alhaji. Yes. Okay, I think we would have to cross over now and listen to the exhortation by His Excellency Ambassador Umar Sanda Ahmed. So stay with us.
Imam Sharifuddin to translate the verse
90.5
into Kotokoli language, but for want of time. But sometimes I believe the excuse of want of time doesn't stand the test of time. We have come here for a single purpose: to mourn and to remember that Alhaji Idris Bature was one of us. Today, he is no longer with us. He has gone where we shall all go, whether we like it or not. My brief sermon is going to be on what legacies we leave behind us when we cross over into eternity. For those of us who were close observers of the life of our brother Alhaji Bature, besides being on TV and engaging in political banter with his very good friend Honorable Kennedy Agyapong, who is seated here, Alhaji Bature had many sides, and one of the things I know is that despite his demeanor, he was somebody who had a lot of patience. And the Quranic reading is telling us that Allah will test us with hunger, with death, with misfortunes. But when they happen, we should be patient. Fellow Muslims, of late there's been a certain tendency in our political life to want to pay, telling me to wind up. Before I came, I was told I should talk for 3 minutes. I think I've spoken for 2 minutes. My prayer is that as Ghanaians, we should have a sense of nationalism and love for each other, and may the good Lord who created Alhaji Bature and has taken him away look at this nation with an eye of mercy. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. A soldier is always a soldier, regardless. Thank you very much. That was Imam Sanda, former Ghana ambassador to Egypt. We thank you so much. Now, let me remind you again.
On the power station, what you just heard was a brief exhortation on the death of Alhaji Bature by His Excellency Ambassador Umar Sanda Ahmed. We should be having a brief profile of Alhaji Bature Idrisu, read by Amos Blessing, the news editor of the Alhaj newspaper, in a bit, and we'll be crossing over to the podium to listen to the profile of Alhaji Bature Idrisu. Let me go ahead and then share with you the outline and what prompts you as and when the outlines are being performed, as and when we go along. And there will be tributes, yes, there will be tributes as well, being read by the head of the Idrisu family, Alhaji Abdulaziz Mubarak Abdul Ghaffar Bature, the son of the late Alhaji Bature Idrisu, the National Council of Zongo Chiefs, the Ghana Journalists Association, representatives of the NDC, NPP, PAC, CPP, and the PPP,
acknowledgements of some dignitaries. There will be a speech by the former President John Dramani Mahama, the main dua by the National Chief Imam, the vote of thanks by Chief Umaru Baba Isa, and then the closing prayer. So that's by way of walking you through the program outline for this morning. Some few dignitaries that I have seen here this morning: former Ambassador to Saudi Arabia, His Excellency Alhaji Said Sinari. I have seen him sitting there. So have I seen the former Defense Minister, Brigadier General Smith, the former YE and Defense Boss Kobe Agyapong is also here. Former Sports Minister Elvis Efie Ankwa is also here. The Honorable Kennedy Agyapong, which Mr. Kwesi Pratt acknowledged, is also here with us. Sheikh Isaac Kwe is also here. The Honorable Isaac Adongo is also here with us. Dr. Mustafa Ahmed is also here with us. Honorable Yusuf Jaja, I have seen him also here with us, and His Excellency the former President and his brother Ibrahim Mahama are also here. Honorable Samuel Obusonkofo, the Honorable Mutala Mohammed, he prefers to be called a comrade, is also here with us, and so that's how we are going till the program comes to an end here on Alhaji and Alhaji, the mother of all talk shows. Once more, you are welcome if you just join us. So we're moving to the next item on the program, and that's a profile on Alhaji Bature Idrisu by Amos Blessing Amos, the editor of the Alhaji newspaper. Let's cross over and listen to what he has to say.
His Eminence Sheikh Dr. Osman Nuhu Sharabutu, Ministers of State, Members of Parliament, former ministers, former Members of Parliament, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, I've been tasked to give a brief account of my former boss, the late Alhaji Bature Idrisu. The late Alhaji Bature Idrisu is a man of many parts. So it's extremely difficult to describe him in some few minutes. But for want of time, I'll try my best and summarize who the late Alhaji Bature Idrisu was. The late Alhaji Bature Idrisu was born on the 10th of July 1957 to the late Alhaji Isaaku Idrisu and the late Habiba Al-Hassan. At birth, he was named Abdul Ghaffar Idrisu. When he was born, he was, quote and unquote, extremely fair. So he was named Bature. Bature in Hausa means white man. And as he grew up, the Abdul Ghaffar faded. So Abdul Ghaffar made way for Bature. So he became known as Alhaji Bature Idrisu. He was born into a family of construction. His late father, Alhaji Idrisu Isahaku, was an eminent contractor. He toured the whole country together with Alhaji Bature. Alhaji Bature Idrisu schooled in Boga. Most of his time in Boga until joining his father in Kumasi, and later they moved to Takrady and back to Accra, where he has lived his life all these years until he met his untimely death on January 5th, 2018. Alhaji Bature, while in his prime days, took to construction. He was in the construction industry until he settled in Accra, where he met friends like Mr. Kwesi Pratt Jr., Honorable ABA Fuseni, and the likes. Because Mr. Kwesi Pratt Jr. and Honorable ABA Fuseni are journalists. He also took interest in journalism and actually became a journalist. He founded the Alhaji and Alhaji program together with Honorable ABA Fuseni, which has become one of the most listened to political programs in Ghana. Later, he founded the Alhaji newspaper in 2009, which has also become one of the foremost newspapers, most read newspapers in the country. He left behind 4 children, a boy and 3 ladies, Baraka, Mubarak, Leila, and Majia. The late Alhaji Bature took ill on the 15th of December 2017, where he was admitted at the Kolebu Teaching Hospital until he gave up the ghost on the 5th of January 2018. May his soul rest in perfect peace. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Shall we please put our hands together for Amos? Thank you very much. Now, the donations that we have at the moment, this is coming from Car Bank. I told you earlier, you can give 1 CD, 2 CD upward. Now we have Honorable Album SK Backbane. He has given 1,000 CD according to Car Bank. Honorable Kennedy Agyapong also gave 1,000 Ghana CD, and Alhaji Usman Banda also gave 2,000 Ghana CD. Atagbir. Now, briefly, we have to quickly mop up, so we'll be inviting His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, who is the chief mourner. But before that, let me invite Honorable ABA Fuseni. Quickly, he will come and talk to us briefly. How did they come by the concept Alhaji and Alhaji? I wish Kwesi Pratt, Honorable Kwesi Pratt will join you, because you are 3 in number. Can we have Mr. Kwesi Pratt to join ABA Fuseni, because people want to see you. Mr. Kwesi Pratt Jr., can we have you? The man with the bag around his neck. Mr. Kwesi Pratt Jr. and ABA Fuseni, they will come and tell us how did they come by the concept Alhaji and Alhaji. Where did it start from, and how did they go about it, and how did we have it on Radio Gold? As we speak now, we are live on Radio Gold 90.5 FM, where Alhaji Bature was the former host of Alhaji and Alhaji, took over by Honorable Al-Hassan Suyini, and now Samuel has taken over. So, Mr. ABA Fuseni, we don't have much time, so we give you the microphone. You are here with your right-hand man, Mr. Kwesi Pratt Jr. Tell us, how did you come by the concept Alhaji and Alhaji?
A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Your Excellency, President John Dramani Mahama, the former Chief of Staff, His Eminence, our father, the Chief of Staff, the Chief Imam, and the ulama and our imams here in Gadet, our Council of Chiefs and Elders, former Ministers of State, former Members of Parliament, all protocols observed. It is a very emotional moment for me. It is very difficult when you are to speak at a ceremony where a departed person who was more than a brother to you and who occupied a very important part of your life. But as our people say, sweetness without bitterness is never appreciated. You have to taste bitterness in order to know what is sweet. There can never be an outdooring without a birth. And so when we gather here today to pay tribute to our brother, our friend, our comrade, Alhaji Bature Idrisu, I can only say that it is as Almighty Allah has told us in the Quran that Kalu inna lillahi wa lillahi rajiun. From him comes everybody, and unto him shall we all return. It's inevitable. Alhaji Bature, for me, gave voice to the voiceless people, millions of them across the country. Indeed, when you are talking about the Alhaji and Alhaji program, when the NDC lost power in 2000 and the New Patriotic Party took over in 2001, I'm sure it is a matter of public record that leading functionaries of the MPP had said that when they are through, by the time they are through with the prosecutions of leading members of the NDC will be no more. And so it created a culture of fear and silence that many people at that time dared not speak out. Indeed, there were some who overnight transmogrified into pastors. They didn't want to speak. Some went back into academia, and there was a pervasive culture of silence. And so it was under such stifling conditions that Alhaji, his place had been a place where we used to gather to discuss political and other social issues. So we gathered there, and there were lamentations. So what do we do? And I quoted Che Guevara after a battle that they had won to fight, and they killed a lot of the community. I say, this is not the time for lamentations. What do we do? And so together we put our heads together, including Alhaji Tanko, Alhaji TD, and others. And the decision was that let us found a program that can give voice to the millions of Ghanaians across the country. And so it was at that time that we put our heads together, crafted a program. And then it came to the name, and many names were floated. Then Alhaji looked me in the face and said, we are sitting on the truth and looking for it. You are Alhaji Abi Ofuseni. I am Alhaji Bature. Let's call it Alhaji and Alhaji. That is the origin of the name Alhaji and Alhaji. And I want to pay special tribute to this gentleman, this patriot, this nationalist, this internationalist standing by my side, Mr. Kwesi Pratt Jr. This is somebody who has immense love for this country. Indeed, when the program Alhaji was crafted to give voice to the voiceless across the country, he was the first among the other activists and those on radio to embrace it. And I can say without any utter for contradiction that at various times that even those of us who participated in crafting it, because even at a point my employers and the state clamped down on me and I could not participate in the program, Mr. Kwesi Pratt Jr. and others were there to carry through the program. And as we speak today, even when others have left it, Mr. Kwesi Pratt has still been with the program to this very date. And I want to pay tribute to him and to the tribute to all the people for this program. Allah bless all of you.
Thank you. Atakbir. Some will call him Massa. Some will call him Yessa. Mr. Kwesi Pratt is here. I want him to speak Hausa. He speaks Hausa very fluently. Tell us, how did he miss Alhaji Bature?
So my Hausa is not fit for this occasion, so I won't try it. All I want to say is that we've lost a great patriot, somebody who was dedicated to his country, somebody who was ready to sacrifice his all in order that all sides of the debate can be heard. There's no debate when there's only one voice. There's a debate when there are many voices. And there cannot be a democracy in which any part of our society is silenced. That is what Alhaji Bature stood for. And we salute him and hope that those of us who have the privilege of living after he's gone will continue with all the dreams that he had until these dreams become a reality. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kwesi Pratt Jr., Alhaji Abia Fuseni. We appreciate you for this wonderful presentation. Now, before we invite His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama, let me invite Mubarak Alhaji Bature, the son of the late Alhaji Bature, and his sisters. They should come and give us their tribute. They should come and give us their tribute as we wait for the submission of His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama. The National Chief Imam will take leave of us just after His Excellency has delivered his speech. So Mubarak will lead his siblings and give us their tribute.
Assalamu alaikum. It is with deep sense of grief that we write this tribute to the memory of our dad, Alhaji Bature Idrisu. Every human being is bound to taste death, and we test you all through the bad and the good things of life by way of trial. And unto us you all must return. Quran 21 verse 35.
It is for Allah what He takes and what He gives. Everything before His sight has a limited specific period. As human, we know that death is inevitable, and as Muslims, we are taught to surrender to the will of Allah. There are three most important entities that determines how one
the children of the late Alhaji Bature finding it very difficult to read the tribute, because of that pain that they will be feeling now, the memories of their father. They find it difficult to control themselves to read the tribute. The son tried, the daughter tried, but I think a third one is taken over. Let's continue with the tribute.
Who comes in this world possesses, whether he participates in it or not. The Quran is very categorical that a man's life does not consist of his possessions, but how many lives he touches. But how many lives he touches with these possessions? That you have indeed touched many lives with your generosity and magnanimity. We shall always remember you, that as we affectionately called you, you were affable, generous, hardworking, trustworthy, reliable, kind, compassionate, and above all, very religious. In spite of all this, you were a strict disciplinarian who denied his children and family luxury and instead catered for the needy in our community. We are indeed grateful for all the discipline you instilled in us. We will forever be grateful for all the discipline and path you paved for us. How do we say farewell to such an illustrious person like you, Daddy? In the words of Apostle Paul, you have fought the good fight, ran the race, and kept the faith. And what awaits you, we believe, is the crown of glory. We love you and will always miss you. We love you and will always miss you in every aspect of our life.
Very emotional moment here at the Kudi Park.
Ya Allah, we implore you to forgive our father and all departed souls. Grant them Jannatul Firdaus. Amen. Sleep well, beloved. Sleep well. Take rest. Lay down thy head upon thy Savior's mercy. We love you, Daddy. We will, but Allah loves you more. Fed you up, great lovable Daddy. May Allah protect you so we meet again. Assalamu alaikum.
All right, so you had the tribute of the children of the late Alhaji Bature Idrisi, emotionally charged tribute there, amidst weeping uncontrollably. They read the tribute to their late father, Alhaji Bature. You're still here on your power station, Radio 90.5 FM. We are expecting President John Dramani Mahama to deliver his speech, after which, like we've been told, the chief imam will take leave of us, and most definitely the other political parties will go through their tributes as well, and would have a vote of thanks by Chief Umaru and the program will come to an end. So the former president will be speaking and addressing the crowd in a bit, but it's been a very solemn moment here, being at the Kudi Park, seeing people, family, friends, loved ones and supporters, people who can tell you stories of the things that Alhaji Bature did for them when he was alive. The very fond memories that interacting with people here, they share with you who he was, what he stood for, and what they believe is his legacy. My discussers this morning who have been helping me do justice to the issues here with respect to what he stood for have been Mr. Junior and Alhaji Bature. These are gentlemen who have had a close walk with the late Alhaji Bature Idrisi, and they've been telling us their experiences with him. They've been telling us the moments, the good times and the bad times, the trying moments, periods of arrest, periods of provocation, and periods of diligent work to ensure we are where we are. For those who did not catch the story, Alhaji Bature was one of the founding, members, or should I say, the one who originated this whole show that Alhaji and Alhaji, which you are listening to, with Alhaji Bature, and it was as a result of both of them being Alhajis. That's how come we have the name of Alhaji and Alhaji as the name of this program. The former President John Dramani Mahama goes to deliver his speech. All right, so I believe we'll cross over and listen to the former president deliver his speech.
Thank you very much, my brother Amin. You're always very kind in your introduction. His Eminence, the National Chief Imam, Imams, Ulama, Council of Muslim Chiefs, family of our late brother Alhaji Bature, his friends, and I acknowledge the presence of my former colleague, Member of Parliament, Kennedy Agyapong, members of Parliament, and indeed all persons who have gathered here today to pay respect to our late friend, brother, father, Alhaji Bature. I salute you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. I want to proceed by thanking God for giving us life today to be able to be here to celebrate the life of our late brother Bature. Indeed, the two holy books, the Quran and the Bible, both teach us about death. And there are passages in both holy books that talk about the inevitability of death. As a student of Umaru Sanda, Imam Umaru Sanda, and having listened to him in many Muslim occasions, I know that the Quran, Surat Anbiya, verse 35, states that surely every soul shall taste of death. And again, this verse is similar to one in the Bible. It's contained in Hebrews chapter 9, verse 27, and it says that it is appointed unto man to die, and after death, the judgment. And so, whether you're a Christian or a Muslim, death is an appointment you have. And once you are born, you shall surely die. And none of us know when Allah shall ask for our lives. I remember shortly after the death of our brother Bature, a picture was shown of him signing the book of condolence at our friend Kaba's funeral. At the time, none of us would have thought that Alhaji would follow soon in a few weeks after. And it's the same. At the last funeral of Alhaji Bature, our uncle and brother Alhaji Has was present. And who knew that a few weeks after that funeral, Alhaji Has was to follow? Today all of us are here. And that's why I say there's an old English saying that don't ask for who the bell tolls. It tolls for you. And so we don't know who next. It's Allah who knows. And all of us must be prepared for death. Today we are here to mourn our brother Alhaji Bature. I have known him for a very long time. When I came into politics in 1996 as a young member of parliament, I was appointed Deputy Minister of Communications. And it was then I met him for the first time. And he was full of advice for me because it was a tough job coming as Deputy Minister at a time in a government that had just transitioned from the PNDC to the NDC. And so I used to meet him from time to time. He had words of counsel for me until I became the Minister of Communications, and we continued that relationship. But I wasn't close to him. I got close to him much later, in about 2005. He became very close friends with my younger brother, Ibrahim. And so anytime I went to Ibrahim's house, I met Alhaji Bature. And by this time, he had taken an interest in politics and journalism. And so he always had a lot of ideas, full of argumentation, and he held very strong opinions. And so from then, our relationship got stronger. And when I became vice president, during the Ramadan fast, I used to organize an iftar for Muslims to break their fast. And I was very honored to host the chief imam, Alhaji Nuhu Shaributu, on each occasion to lead the Muslim population to join me in iftar. And Alhaji was the main organizer. He handled the invitations, he handled every logistic to do with iftar. Alhaji has been known to be a philanthropist. There are many young people in school whose fees he's been paying. He gives charity to people who don't have. He's willing to share everything. Indeed, we all know that his guest house virtually became a home for the homeless. If somebody didn't have a place to stay, Alhaji would quickly give him a room in the guest house to be able to stay for a while until the person found a permanent location. And so when events like this happen, we ask ourselves, what do we do? The Quran tells us what to do. It says that when a person dies, the most important need of his is not flamboyant funerals, it is not display of wealth, it is prayers. It is intercessory prayers to Allah to grant him Jannat Firdaus. And so at this time, all Alhaji needs from us is our fervent prayers to Allah to intercede on his behalf and forgive him all of his sins and allow him to enter Jannat Firdaus. And so at this time, we thank the Imams for the prayers they've said for him, and we must continue to remember him in our prayers. Aside from that, it is prescribed in the Holy Quran that blessings that one can receive upon death is if some charitable work is done in the name of the person, like the construction of a mosque or a school or a well. In those days they didn't have boreholes, they had wells. And so if you dug a well and people drank from the well, you continue to receive the blessings of Allah. And so when we held his funeral, marking the 3rd day after his death, I announced that, working with his friend Ibrahim, my younger brother, and the family, we would do something in his name. We decided that we'll construct 2 boreholes, one in Nima and one in Mamobi, so that everybody who drinks the water from those boreholes will give blessing to Alhaji Bature. And so we're going to consult with the MPs and the family to identify the best sites where these boreholes will be constructed. Let me end my tribute to Alhaji by giving a story from the Quran. It is known that after you die, when you're buried, the angels descend to come and judge you and determine whether Allah will grant you Jannat Firdaus or not. And so there was this pious Muslim who read the Quran every day. The Quran was like his friend, and he always recited verses from the Quran, and he always read the Quran. And so when he died, the angels descended to give him judgment. When they came to give him judgment, there was a handsome young man standing by the grave. And people wondered who the handsome young man was. And so the angels proceeded to give judgment. And after they did, the handsome man introduced himself and said, I am your friend. I am the Holy Quran. Because you read me religiously and you took me as a friend, I am here to intercede on your behalf with the angels. And so the handsome man interceded with the angels, that is the Quran, and said that this man was pious. During his lifetime, he read me religiously, and therefore I intercede that Allah grant him Jannat Firdaus. And he was granted Jannat Firdaus. And so it means that whatever your religion, whether you're a Christian or a Muslim, the Bible or the Quran must be your best friend. And that might be the intercession that makes the difference between paradise and hell. And so on this note, I wish to present some copies of the Holy Quran to the family of Alhaji Bature to be distributed to all mosques in this area, so that the Quran shall be their friend, and that the Quran shall be the handsome young man that prays for intercession for their father to be granted Jannat Firdaus. Don shi jama'a muna ba da godiya a chief imam da imamai da ulama da sarakin da suka zo suka yi ma danwanmu babanmu Alhaji Bature suka zo suka yi mishi addu'a. An ce in mutum ya rasu abinda yana nema kawai ni addu'a. Don shi mun gode su kwarai, Allah karbi addu'anmu da jikan shi da ramashe shi, Allah sa ya futa. Salamu alaikum. Ina roko kamun da zama imame su yi ma yayanmu babanmu kulwal lahu ahad. A yi masa kulwal lahu. Na gode kwarai, Allah jikan shi.
Thank you. Jama'a in ji wai ai kul huwallahu jama'a soma malam baban na kake.
Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Kul huwallahu ahad, Allahu samad, lam yalid wa lam yulad wa lam yakul lahu kufuwan ahad.
Now presentation of the Holy Quran to Mubarak on behalf of the family to distribute these Qurans in some of our mosques for the blessings to be directed to Alhaji Bature. Atakbir. Now His Excellency NDC minority in Parliament, they have given 5,000 Ghana cedi. Jama Atakbir. So Jama kema kaga kai kabala konka daga can inda car bank suke nan. You can move to the car bank and make your donations. Once again, we thank you. The National Chief Imam will be leaving us, but we have other eminent imams in our midst who would actually take us through the remaining of the program that we have here today. So Alhaji Mustafa Plus, and he is also here. Thank you so much. We'll be coming back to acknowledge some dignitaries after the departure of His Eminence the National Chief Imam.
Alright, so we're back here, and that was the address by His Excellency, the former President John Dramani Mahama. Many things he says in his delivery. He talks about the need for us to stay closer to our God, the fact that regardless of which belief system you share, be you Muslim, a Christian, your Bible, your Quran should be of utmost importance to you, and that you should make it a point to always read. It tells a very interesting story of a young man who dies, and then his Quran becomes his savior. So I mean, these are very important things that we can pick from this all-important occasion, which is the 40 days of the passing away of Alhaji Bature Idrisu. Alhaji Bature Idrisu. Very, very interesting points that have been made. The Chief Imam is taking leave at the moment as we speak, as earlier announced. And so if you just join us, especially the regular fans of Alhaji and Alhaji, the mother of all talk shows, the entire show today has been dedicated to the memory of the late Alhaji Bature, the managing editor of the Alhaj newspaper, who passed on to glory on the 5th of January this year, 2018. Let me seek the views of the concluding remarks of Mr. Bart, and then I see Mr. Kojuchumbuafo also here. I will pick the comments of a regular panel member of Alhaji and Alhaji Comrade Mutala Mohammed, the final, you know, 40 days dua for the late Alhaji Bature. Mr. Pat, rounding up our discussions today, which has to do with the celebration of the passing away of the late Alhaji Bature. Your final words.
Former Chief of Staff.
Well, just to say that Alhaji has made a great contribution to the development of radio and to journalism generally, and that in the process he was helped by many people. In fact, Alhaji Fuseni has just drawn my attention to the contribution of Mr. Paul Afoko, who became national chairman of the New Patriotic Party, to the development of the Alhaji and Alhaji program. And you recall that from the very beginning, Mr. Paul Afoko was always with us, you know, and he brought some balance, which was quite important. And I'm very, very happy that Alhaji Fuseni has drawn my attention, you know, to that. Well, it appears that we are getting to the end of this function. All the signs point to that. This will not be the beginning and the end of Alhaji Bature. This indeed may be an opportunity to carry forward what he has done. And if what he has done was to promote a balance in our media, what he has done was to ensure that all views found expression and so on, then the path of us ahead of us is much longer than the one we have already traversed. And there's a long way before us. I think it's important for all of us, whoever we are, to ensure that every view finds expression, to ensure that all sides to the story are told, to ensure that people are not criminalized or demonized on account of difference. That is the only way to pay glowing tribute to Alhaji Bature Idrisu.
You've given us. I'll come to you, Alhaji A.B. Hussein, your final comment on this.
I can say without any act of contradiction that what has just happened is a glowing tribute to the dedication and commitment Alhaji Bature showed, not only for this program, Alhaji and Alhaji, but his overall contribution to the democratic dispensation of this country. That he made personal sacrifices, not just with his resources, sometimes with his liberty. I've indicated how he was even detained at the BNI over certain comments that he made about the interests and aspirations of the good people of this country. So I have no doubt in my mind that the seed that Alhaji Bature has sown, as I said, the seed that Allah Almighty planted, not the most devastating ground can destroy it. And so for me, I'm comforted in the belief that this one is for all time. As I said, Eshan, the baton is in the hands of those of you who are today, and notwithstanding the difficulties and the impediments that will be thrown in your path. But there are certain people with vested political interests who don't want you to speak the truth and to champion the cause and interests of the masses of this country. And so they will use all manner of weapons of fear to instill it in you. Never allow yourself to be intimidated and petrified into. Never allow yourself to be cowed, so that one day, instead of getting to the program and the difficult circumstances, say, "Oh, I've had enough, I won't go." Always difficult moments ahead. But if you persevere, one day the good people of this country will pay you an appropriate tribute. So I want to salute all of you and to salute the good people of this country, and above all, to pray to Allah Almighty to have the mercy on the soul of our brother and friend Alhaji Bature and grant him Jannatul Firdaus.
Thank you very much, Alhaji A.B. for saying for these final words. Whilst holding the baton, I am unable to hold the baton by myself. There are other people who also, in this generation of ours, who are also helping. One of them who always features on Alhaji and you can call him anytime, even without prior notice, and he will show up as the Honorable Murtala Ibrahim Mohammed. The Honorable Kennedy Agyapong has joined us on the show this morning. I can see, the excitement and joy on his face as he interacts with the Honorable ABA Fuseni. The moments they used to share together, whispering into each other's ears, you know, it speaks volumes of the relationship that they used to share as comrades who, you know, started this show that you and I are benefiting from today. And so Alhaji has given his final comments, but let me speak to the Honorable Kennedy Agyapong and pick a few words from him. Recounting a few of the moments which they shared back then when they were together on Alhaji and Alhaji. Honorable, good morning. Good morning. How are you doing today?
Pretty good.
It's good to have you with us this morning. It's been a while. We saw you on the show.
Yes. I don't know. I think my good friend here, we had an argument that since then we've never met. You know, anytime you invite me, I'll come. I think the traffic is the problem.
The traffic is the problem.
But if it's on weekends, I can make it. We used to do that on weekends, right? On Saturdays.
Yeah.
Alhaji and Alhaji.
It's become necessary for all of us to converge here because of the passing away of the late Alhaji Bature. I have asked many people their fondest memory of him. You had very fierce encounters with him. I've seen the footages on YouTube and other places. What would be the moments that you can so easily recount to us as the moment that you hold so dear to your heart?
You know, as I said earlier on, when an individual is living and working and fighting for the nation, we don't seem to appreciate him until he passes away or dies. He's left a vacuum. I was telling my NDC MPs that it will be very difficult to fill his position for his style of argument. Anytime I'm doing a serious damage to NDC, he just provoke me with another argument that if you don't defend it, it will be a serious damage. So I have to abandon what I'm saying to follow him. So he sets agenda for me when he sees that I'm doing a serious damage. No, he was very good. And like Kwesi, I fought with him several times. And one day Adom decided to bring two of us together. And when we went, it was a fantastic debate that time. And ever since we became friends. You know, sometimes if I go off, when we finish the program, you call the person, talk to him. No, he was such a nice guy that if you don't meet him one-on-one, you will think he's a bad guy. But as for debate, he is good. You should always be ready because he can be diabolic. And sometimes we'll discuss the issue before we go in. We are not going to talk about it, especially issue on Ibrahim. So okay, today we are not talking. Then he will wind around and bring it up. Then Kwabena Sante will warn us and go home and go home. Anytime Kwabena said and go home, it means we discussed the issue before we came to the show. And no, honestly, I didn't know the program was so interesting because I don't get feedbacks. I don't go back to watch. But when I came back from China and learned of his death, and the first program that I went and they were showing the footage, and I realized, oh, indeed, it was a very good program that we're doing. And all I'll say is, may Allah put him in his bosom. I also pray for his children. Now he's gone. We have to do something for his children. I'm ready anytime with whatever we can also do. What has happened to him? It can be me, it can be you. So we shouldn't jubilate. Although Alhaji is gone, you don't know when it's going to be your time. But he never showed a sign to me that he was sick. Until Kwabena Sante told me, we went to a program, he didn't come, and I asked, he didn't even know. But later when he called me, he said, oh, he has been admitted at the hospital. So we had to go there Sunday morning. And that day, I've said it to this gentleman already. Alhaji Bature's death, and especially when he was on the hospital bed, changed me a lot. because I was bitter, especially about Koko Enyido, because of what he did for them to charge me treason. But when I saw Alhaji Bature and the niece whispered to him, "Shadow, can you see it? All he did was this." And I held his hand. I was holding his hand and he fell asleep. So I told Pablo that, let's go. When I walked out, all I said was that, look, all this machoism, whatever, would not take us anywhere. The man did not even show any sign that he was sick. And today, he cannot even talk to us. He can't see. And I said, I have forgiven anybody that has offended me. I want anybody that I have offended should also forgive me. And we move on, because life, you cannot live with bitterness forever. And I think his death has changed me a lot. Look, I saw my father die. I saw my mother. At Alhaji Bature, if I had not visited him at the hospital, something would have happened to me. Because every now and then I start, you show up, especially Tuesday morning when I'm going to the program. Then you come to mind. You mean the guy that I was arguing with him is no more? You know, it will take me a while to get him off my mind.
But how did the news get to you, and how did you receive it when you got the news?
I was in China and Babna Sante called me and said, Ish, Asamaba. When he said Ish, Asamaba, then I knew he said, in fact, you know, God does things in miraculous ways and everything. So when I saw his state, I couldn't say anything, but I knew that it would be very difficult for him to make it. Even if he does, it was not going to be normal. But we're all praying that God, in his own wisdom, will heal him, because I wanted him to come and join me. For any time I talk about these hospitals, then he will twist the issue. So I was praying that he will come. Then we all crusade against the way they treat patients and all those things. But I'll be honest with you, when I went there, a gentleman, a nurse, was fantastic. I always talk about nurses. That gentleman who was taking care of Alhaji Bature was fantastic. No, I was devastated. I said, oh, I mean, I wanted him to come back so that we all talk about this, our health system and everything. But God knows what is best for everybody.
It's interesting, your passion for health-related issues. The fact that you're concerned about people and how nurses and these professionals, you know, treat them when they go to the various hospitals. Would we see a Kennedy Agyapong campaign to sensitize people on the need to treat others who visit these hospitals with some kind of decency?
Yeah, you know, I'll say so. But sometimes, if you don't get ill, or if you are not admitted, or somebody who is dear to your heart is not admitted at the hospital, you might not appreciate what I was trying to say. Yeah. Until you get there yourself and see the way they treat patients. I don't blame them too much, because their soul is willing, but the logistics to work with it are not there. So sometimes they got frustrated and they turn their anger on patients, which is also no good. So I'm thinking, we all take a cue from this and see how best we can do for our hospitals. I will go to the vice president and talk to him that whatever happened to him, we thank God he's survived. He went to UK. He saw how patients are treated, hospitals, the medication they have and everything. He should help us build our hospitals like that, so that any important personality who falls ill will not go to England or South Africa. Very, very important.
You spoke about one very important thing, which has to do with the acrimonious nature of our politics, and the fact that the death of Alhaji made you tell yourself, all the bitterness must go away? Everybody have offended, forgive me. You who has offended me, I forgive you. You think we've learnt lessons?
Well, like I said earlier on, if you don't experience it, you might not see how important it is that you need to forgive your brother and let your brother also forgive you. You see, if you want to build a nation, the division is too much. NDC and people. I will attack these two political parties, NDC and people. The way we go about issues, you realize initially when I started with Alhaji, we're all the time fighting on political grounds, but somewhere along the line we decided to talk about national issues that affect everybody. So this is how you build a. If I had not had the opportunity to meet him one-on-one on debate, probably the perception would have been different, and we wouldn't have been able to make a difference. So the question you ask, you see, forgiveness. So long as you're a human being, you should know that somebody will offend you. Anyway, to be frank with you, is to some extent. Sometimes people deliberately go there and they say that I'm going to malign Kwesi Pratt. That you might find it difficult to forgive. But I am saying that even if a man I believe and I know for a fact put a word in for them to charge me treason, because of Alhaji Bature, I said I'm forgiving him. My brother, there's nothing on earth that a brother will do to you that you cannot forgive. It's important. You can do it. But you need to be there in a particular state, which I don't call for it for you. Or it might not be pleasant. Whether being you or a relative or a friend. If you saw him in that state, that a huge guy lying there and could not even move, I think he made a sign to the nurse and he wanted to scratch himself. Then he made a sign to the nurse, say, Alhaji at that point in time could not even scratch himself. That tells you they are nobody.
So, you know, on the point of forgiveness, you specify your relationship with Koko Aidoho.
Yeah.
In talking about forgiveness, have you in any way called him? Has he called you? Have you resolved your differences?
I don't know his number anyway. And you see, my lifestyle is that I am not somebody who goes to argue with Kwesi and we have a problem, then I go back to my room to plan that, hey, Kwesi Pratt, you will see what I'll do to you. I don't have the time. I argue with him and we nearly fought at the station. Okay, but not a single day that I have planned that I'm going to attack Kwesi Pratt. It won't help me. But in the course of debate, some issues might come up, maybe his name. I know there are a lot of issues that he said he mentioned some MP, Massa. One MP, I know from the description, he wasn't mentioned by anybody. You know, that's the beauty of it. Today we are sitting here.
Yeah.
No, we met, the last time we met was at Heathrow Airport. When we were taking our luggage, we were talking, you know. But if I criticize somebody, what makes you think that he can also not criticize me? So me, when you criticize me, I put it behind me. Okay? So as for forgiveness, we can do it. We always pray to God for forgiveness. So why can't we also forgive if we want God to forgive us? Let us use Alhaji's death and make a U-turn and see if we can build this nation without enviness, jealousy, acrimony. You know, it doesn't build a nation. So me, Alhaji Bature's death has taught me a lesson. That giant guy that I saw lying there parallel couldn't do anything. It can happen to you too.
So finally, before you take leave of us, what would you say he would be remembered for, his legacy?
I was telling my colleagues, NDC MPs, that his legacy is his defense of NDC party, especially Mahama's family. The way he defended them is not easy. He was a top defender of NDC and a critic of NDC. I have the same until I met him, because we had fought several times on radio, heated argument back and forth. When I met him one-on-one several times, I realized he has the same traits in me. What he has, I have it too. Because he has the nation at heart. Well, sometimes I also do things diabolic, because when you are flooring me, then I'll go back and bring some issues up to cool you down. That he was good at it. He was good at it. So I remember him for his debate, that he was tough. He always got me off when I'm making a point, and he knows that point is going to be damage to NBC party. He will just cut in, and he'll be writing the thing, and you go on his phone, whether WhatsApp or the net, and pull some past information, then hit me, bam. You see that I will stop and defend what he's saying. It means whatever damage I was trying to do, yeah, full stop. He was a top defender of NDC, honestly.
We are grateful you made time to join us this morning.
Thank you. So, you know, life is short. Yeah. Thank you.
He's my chairman on my committee.
Yes. The communications committee.
I was counting the progress.
So, listeners, that's the Honorable Kennedy Agyapong joining us here on the show. We are, ending the program here to hand over to the team in the studio to take over from us. It's been a live coverage of the 40 days dua of the late Alhaji Bature. I've not been here alone. Kabore Tanko, Samia Ablodepe, Richard Agyapong, Mr. Lechu, the entire team supported me for us to bring you today's edition of Alhaji and Alhaji, fully dedicated to the memory of the late Alhaji Bature. So go all in next week Saturday. Do make a date as we discuss issues of national interest, and then meet me on Monday morning for the Gold Power Drive. Do have a real blessed morning. We are out.